Yo, what's up you guys? So today we're talking about Lightroom Mobile. So a lot of people have wondered if this is a good option, and photographers specifically are always trying to get things out faster to either clients or to social or whatever the case is. So I like to use Lightroom Mobile in those instances when I'm out somewhere and I've already got the photos and I'm ready to like knock them out and kick them out to socials or whatever. So I want to give you guys this little tutorial on how I go about doing it, and maybe it'll help you out. Stick around and I'll show you what I do. Okay, so we have our photo into the Lightroom Mobile. I've got my pencil because I think it makes it a little bit easier, but you can do this without the pencil just the same. So this is just a little added tool for me just to make it a little bit easier, but it is not something you absolutely need. So don't think that you need another $100 pen to do this. But we have our photo here and it's pretty simple. We have just the two guys, the skateboards. This is from the Atlanta Beltline last year and I really like this photo, but you can tell that it's straight out of camera, so it's not all of that yet. We have a big problem with exposure right off the bat. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to the light and play around with this light exposure. And I kind of like that. We're only at 0.7 plus, and so you can tell that I did pretty good in camera with this. But even just that little boost, now you can see the two guys really like so much better. So that's a really good way to do that. The next thing you can do is play around with the contrast if you like that. And this one you can tell, what I really like about Lightroom Mobile in this aspect is how tactile it is. So instead of using my point and click just to move and slide, I can see a lot easier. It's a little bit more finesse. So I can tell that my contrast is affecting my trees and my outline shadows on the left-hand side more than anything. So that obviously will help me out a little bit. You can see the darker colors even in the in his shoes over in the bottom left are getting a little darker, but this is just something to play with. So I kind of like this right here. Highlights are obviously like a key when you're talking about editing in Lightroom Mobile or Lightroom in general, because you don't want to have blown out highlights. So obviously we're going to knock those down just a smidge, and you can see if you blow them out, we got a plus 100. You can see his shirt is almost like neon white. It's really bright. So obviously, if we bring it all the way down, then we get to see that sky. So you can see there was actually a sky present and a little bit of cloud. So I actually like that with my highlights a little bit better. Maybe I'll bring it just a little bit lower. Shadows, we're probably going to mess with the trees again. Yeah, you can see if I go all the way to the left, we get the left, or the far left and the far right are the two things we're affecting the most. But obviously one of our subjects is in the far right in those shadows, so you want that to be visible. So we obviously wouldn't touch that too much, but if I wanted to make my main subject the guy that is in front, which is kind of what I was shooting for, then I might drop those shadows just a little bit more, because that'll keep my secondary subject kind of off to the right. He'll be out of the way, out of the view, so he might not be the first thing you see. So shadows are another good thing to knock down if that's what your goal is. Whites is the same way. If we take it back to the regular white, I'm gonna drop it just a smidge so we get not a blown out sky, but we also don't get that bright white sidewalk. I think this is a good place to do it. Now blacks for this image, so he's wearing black shorts and the other guy's got a black shirt on. So if we crush the blacks, you can tell that you've lost your image on the left and right again, and that deals with the shadows because that was the darkest area. But also what you can tell, if you get in here and zoom in, you have no contrast to tell, like you have no like his shorts they're just crushed when you do that. You don't get any texture in it. Same way with his shoes because he's got dark Vans on, and the other guy with his Volcom shirt, same way. If you crush those blacks, it won't look very good. So let's zoom in to right here and let's bring those back. So we can see that just by playing with it just a little bit, and this is what I really like about Lightroom Mobile, is that I can zoom in, and then you see when I touch this, I still get the slider, and you can see at the top the adjustment number. But just by playing with it, you can tell where you want it. So this is a lot of plug and play, and that's if you've played with Lightroom in general, even on the desktop version, it's very similar to that. Colors, I really don't want to touch a whole lot. I like that it's that warm springy vibe, or warm, I think this was shot in late summer, so you still get those light, those colors from that time of the year. But if you wanted to, you could do the dropper tool. And what's really cool about this is that wherever you drag it to is where it's going to adjust to. So you can see where I had it on his shirt and it's a little bit cooler. We drag it to his skin and it's really cool. Do it to the trees and adjust that cyan. So sometimes what you want to do, and I think one of the best things would be, see, you can't even drag it on a plain white like that cloud right there, because it actually doesn't show you anything. So you can see that just by playing with the dropper tool, if you wanted to do it just like that, that's one way to do it. Or if it has it set at one point and you just want to drag your temperature to make it a little bit cooler, you can do that. So from there, if you want to adjust vibrance and saturation, it's the same way. So vibrance, you could crush it and go absolutely blown out and make it look neon and crazy. Or if you wanted to make it look a little bit more muted, you could do the absolute opposite. For this one, I want to focus on obviously the main person, the secondary person, and then anything beyond that, I want it to be a backdrop to the photo. So beyond that, let's drop back color, and we have detail. So this is where you get your sharpening, masking, noise reduction, color noise reduction, smoothness, and detail. So this is one that I try to touch probably the least, unless it really enhances the photo. But sometimes when you do this, I think, especially with the sharpening, people will do this. So look, all right, so let's zoom in again. So this is the main point of our photo, right? So let's bring it all the way up. Now you can see when we get into a zoom that basically what you've done is just added a lot of noise to your image, and that happens purely because you're over sharpening. So if this is something that you're doing and you're noticing that and you don't want that, bring that that sharpening way back. Masking, noise reduction. Masking will help. Let's zoom in. Masking will help with creating some of that. If you have a lot of noise, let's do sharpening at 150, and we do masking. You can see masking is trying to cover that noise that you've tried to put into it. So if you crank sharpening and masking together, it's still going to be mushy, so you don't want to do a whole lot of that. But if you had like a normal amount of sharpening and you wanted to just mask it just a little bit, you could do that as well. So these are things to fix more of your whole image when you're looking to fix how the image may look or whatever. What I like to do a lot of the times, though, on this one, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference because there's no definitive hard straight lines or anything like that. But what you can do with geometry is add your line here. And let's say this is a straight line here, right? And then we're going to say that we want it to make, this is our horizon, right? And we're going to say that's our horizon. Geometry is just like when you click into the desktop version and you're trying to get your lines perfect. Geometry is what I use the most because you can pick, I think it's up to 4 lines. Let's see. So that's 3, 4, yeah. So 4 lines to determine what elements you want to be straightened out in your image. So if you have 2 buildings on 2 sides and your image is shot and you're shooting for the person in the middle, say like with a wide lens, and like I was saying, you get those bowed buildings. What you could do is actually select geometry, select those this little icon over here that looks like lines, and click your segments over the 2 outside of the building lines, and this will straighten it out for you. Obviously, if you wanted to take them off, you just click one of the tabs and then delete, a little trash can, and then you have it back to wherever. All right, so for all intents and purposes, this is as much as I would do for this image as far as the whole image. Now, again, what I say is like the reason like why we need to work on this is still because our main subject is a little dark, and our secondary subject, the 2 main guys in this photo, are still kind of dark compared to our background. So that's going to make people go right through them straight into the back of the image. So what I want to do is actually one of these. Let's see, where is what I'm looking for. Your presets, if you wanted to add those, if you want to, you can actually take any of your presets from your desktop and load them onto your mobile version, so it'll help you out. So you can even do this a little bit faster because you already have your presets that you normally use already into the mobile version. I do not, because I just haven't done it, but it is an option. So like I said, we get presets, your actual crop, your healing brush if you wanted to do that, so you could actually select your size, feather, and opacity of that healing brush. So if you had something that was you wanted to feather out a little bit, something that's a little too sharp, this could be a way to do that. But for me, what I want is the selective edits, which is the little circle with the dotted line around it. So in the top left, we have a plus, we have a brush, the little circle, and then a little square. So the brush is actually going to allow you to, you can choose the brush tool and then say we're going to actually kind of color in our subject here. So this is a really good way to do that instance. You obviously can delete that or whatever. If you select the circle, it's going to give you a big circle that is more kind of standard. So you can do it something like that and actually create the mask over top of that way. For this one, what I want to do is actually zoom in just a little bit. So I have my subject in line. I'm going to select the draw tool and this second little circle, and then I'm going to highlight him. So this doesn't have to be exact for this instance, and it doesn't have to be exact for your instance as well, for your photos. This is kind of play around and see what you like, because you can get super niche and get really zoomed in there and do only him, get every pixel that involves him. It just takes a little bit more time, and that's kind of not what we're about here for right now. So what we're trying to do is actually color in just what we want to be highlighted. And what's really good about this versus doing it on the actual desktop version is I think that, like I said, it just feels a little bit better and it's a little bit easier. Because we have the pencil, we can highlight a little bit easier. If you wanted to zoom in, you could get right into here and color in this area, stuff like that, versus trying to be really wide brushed. So we have him selected, and what we want to do is adjust our exposure, contrast, highlights, all the things that we did for the entire photo, but just for our subject. So if you're familiar with the desktop version, you actually have a little click that will turn this off. For this one, it's actually really interesting. So we will zoom into him, right? Oh, we're coloring. Oh, hold on. We're gonna erase that right there. So in this one, we can do exposure. And like I said, what's really cool about this one is that you can kind of see the circle right here where in the top right hand. And what this allows you to do is actually see the area that you're adjusting just by holding down the pen or having, if I'm going to use my finger. So we have the same thing, and I'm going to use the slider with my finger. So you can see how much adjustment you can make on that single image. Now, the only thing I have a problem with this, I love the fact that I've colored in him perfectly, but his skateboard looks a little wonky down at the bottom. So you can see this just looks a little too bright on the left wheel there. But as far as brightening him up, that's excellent. Excellent. Because if we zoom back out, you can see about how the difference is. So look at the right-hand person and the left-hand person. So our main subject is bright and vibrant. You can see him. And then the left side, he's very dark. So if you wanted to do this sort of edit, what really helps you out here is that brightness is going to bring your eye to that subject right where you want it to be. So that helps. Just to play with a little bit more, we'll do some more contrast, and we'll make sure that we get him right. So the contrast you can see is over here in his left side, right around where his elbow is, and his head, his left elbow. So if we do it, we can add in a lot of contrast and make it look really dark, or we can just do it just a little bit so it kind of matches that scene. So we don't want him blown out or whatever. Highlights are the same way. We have his t-shirt. We can either make it really brilliant, or we can dull it down a little bit, or find somewhere in the middle that we like. And for me, I guess it's kind of right there. Shadows are on this image is going to help me out a lot because we have a really dark subject because of the lighting situation. So if we do it just a little bit, we can get that down right where we want it to. And you can see that I only did -8 on shadows. So shadows, you just don't want to go overpowering. So there's the difference. I mean, literally very little. Bright whites, the shirt and his socks again. And you can see where I have his white socks. If you look down at his socks, they're so brilliant because of that white boost. So there's normal. And if you did it, it would almost look like he's glowing. So don't over edit. That's the key to all of this, is just playing with the sliders and then getting into it, but don't go crazy because you'll end up with something that doesn't look right. And the blacks, I think, will go the same way. So you can actually, this one will be interesting because he has dark hair, dark shorts, dark shoes. So if we go and crush them, it looks terrible. And then if we go all the way white, or all the way to the right, you can see that all the elements that we just colored are almost like a ghost. So we don't want that either. The best thing with this would be to press it just a little bit, so you could get some of the detail in those darker elements back out. Color is, again, the exact same thing. You can use the fine adjustment, which is really cool. So if you wanted to slide over and make it a little bit more yellow, it would make him look probably sick, I guess. It would not look right. But you could adjust some of this element here with your temperature. And then if you do not fine adjustment, you can make huge differences, right? But that's why I like that fine adjustment tool. So by clicking that on, it'll only move that slider just a little bit back to where you want it to. And we will revert. So now we want to hit the guy on the right-hand side, because for me, I like having that second element because he's just as in focus as the man on the left. So I'll do a little quick similar thing where we'll take our selection, we'll add another brush, and we will color the area. So we want to get him, maybe the skateboard. We're going to draw over here, make sure we get all of him in there. Everything that's in focus. Anything that's not in focus, a good way to go about this would be to hit it with that dark shadow, right? Because then you can kind of play it off a little bit better. But he's actually really in focus, so I like that. The biggest thing here, again, is going to be the exposure. And you can see that brings him out a lot, which is really good. So if we zoom back out, oh, there we go. You can see he is now a subject, an obvious subject in the photo, which is really good. The only thing I would do again is that same thing. Both I can see in his shoes where he's a little brilliant and his hand is a little overexposed. So what we would do is go back to, let's see, bring that down just a smidge. We'll do that. Right, we'll do the contrast again. Bring down the highlights. I like the shadows to be up a little bit more, and we can actually kill those highlights just a little bit more. The whites and blacks. So you can see just by playing with the light, I haven't done much of anything else other than hitting the exposure for this image, which is kind of the idea when you want to do photography, is you want to nail it right the first time in camera and then adjust from there. But I think just doing this has helped this out a lot. So that is the final image where I would say that it is pretty good for this tutorial. What I have to say is that I don't want it to be super professional for you guys, because what I want is to show you that everybody makes mistakes. And with that, the faster you do it, the more mistakes you're going to have. So let me actually show you the final image where I did it on the iPad and I did the exact same photo. Here is the original. But as far as Lightroom Mobile, as far as it goes for me, is that you could do whatever you do on the desktop right here. The only difference for me is that usually when I'm trying to use it is when I'm trying to make it a little bit more faster pace. So I want it to kick out to my socials a little bit faster than going out to a settings, taking photos, and then going back home a day later, whatever, and trying to edit up them. This is really good for that fast-paced lifestyle that photographers seem to run into. And if any of this helps out, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're thinking about. And if you'll hit that thumbs up button, I super appreciate that. This is kind of my conclusion to all of this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really appreciate it. I like doing it with you guys. If you want to see some tips and tricks or whatever, anything that I've learned, I'd love to show it to you. Make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button below, and watch some more content. I think it'll be awesome for you. And with that, I'm going to say peace out. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.